The applications of field pattern theory are still emerging, but one field they may apply to is quantum mechanics. In quantum mechanics, the probable locations of objects such as electrons are represented as clouds in which the object is likely to be found, and the shape of those clouds can be described using wave-like equations. But when an observer measures the position of an object, the wave-like behavior collapses into a single point of location, like a particle. Thus, objects behave as both particles and as waves.
Pattern formation in physical, biological, and sociological systems has been studied for many years. Despite the fact that these subject areas are completely diverse, the mathematics that describes underlying patterns in these systems can be surprisingly similar. Mathematical tools can be used to study such systems and predict their patterns.
Using two discrete models, one modeling the attractiveness of individual houses to burglars and the other modeling burglar movement, the authors of the UCAS study developed a continuum model based on a system of parabolic differential equations. Using this system as a starting point, the authors applied bifurcation theory, or the analysis of a system of ordinary differential equations under varying conditions, such as social or economic conditions of a neighborhood, to extend the scope of analysis.
Do not run from a predator or you will trigger its predatory instincts to kill you because running means you're weak and scared. He was careless and forgot about this. Any lion or bear, regardless of how friendly they are, will have done this. If you run, even your own dog may instinctively chase you. You stand up to that lion and he'll reevaluate and probably decide you're his friend or a fight isn't worth it.
SFU's library search searches many databases at once, so it's a great place to start when looking for articles. Enter the topic and click search. The results page will have a section called Journal Articles. To view more articles, click on See All Results at the bottom of the section. Now we can see all of the results from our search.
We are looking at positive words for good emotions and some negative words for not so happy emotions. Most people are going to use happy and sad. Those are probably the first words you learn when you want to describe emotions, but sometimes I hear people talking and having a conversation. They just keep using the same happy and sad. There's no variation.
I think walking on air and Happy Bunny might be linked to skipping. You know, when children, or sometimes adults, are happy, they skip. When we skip, our feet are off the ground. The bunnies tend to leap, so their feet are off the ground too. I see a potential link there.
I am of the opinion that decentralized projects are better. Less chance that there will be subjective influence from outside. A good example of decentralization is the Tokengo tokenization business platform. The project itself has already passed for 3000 ETH. And structure and functional are not subject to any influence. Safety at the height.
So I think that we may be unique among the apes in that we can detect when a food has been cooked or fermented. And that this allows us to identify the benefits of those, which is that they're detoxified, they have greater available nutrients, that they are, in the case of fermented foods, going to have probiotics, or good microbes that we want and need in our intestines in order to survive in the world.
scientists investigated those pathways in humans and mice. They found that exposure to low oxygen depletes stores of a red blood cell protein called ENT1. That's a good thing. Because now other substances that protect your body against low oxygen are free to rapidly accumulate and help the body adapt. But here's the kicker: once the ENT1 protein goes away, it doesn't come back. Meaning red blood cells kind of remember their altitude exposure.
And so a cohort study where some school-age children were given 40 minutes or more time outside, those children had a 23 to 50% less likely chance of developing myopia than students at schools who were not given that same amount of outdoor exposure. And it looks to be dosage dependent, so the longer time you spend outside the less chance you have of developing myopia. So the exact mechanisms are not really known, so we really need a lot more research into this. But another major factor that's being implicated is near-work activities.
The invaders she's talking about are central casting for an underwater horror movie. Take the nomadic jellyfish, in huge swarms 60 miles long, which sent hundreds of people to Turkish hospitals a few summers back. Or a type of pufferfish, extremely poisonous, that occasionally gets fished out and lands at fish markets by mistake. Galil says these bad guys, and many others, have invaded the Mediterranean through the ever-widening Suez Canal.
Last Christmas, Santa Claus must have been loading his sleigh in a t-shirt and shorts. Temperatures at the North Pole crept up toward the freezing point when they should have been -20 Fahrenheit. The heat wave was the latest in a series that have swept over the Arctic in recent winters. Climate change has caused steady warming in the region. But it has also helped supercharge these extreme events, which scientists say are tied to storms that spiral north out of the Atlantic.
Engineers called a new technique feed extended drilling. It works by pushing the drill bit inches past the stabilizer bars that keep the rover steady. NASA says the new technique works more like a human leaning on a wall to steady themselves as they work. NASA's Curiosity rover successfully drilled a 2-inch deep hole in a target called Duluth on May 20th. It was the first rock sample captured by the drill since October 2016.
The evidence for or against computer-assisted history taking systems is sparse. For example, as of 2011, there are no randomized control trials comparing computer-assisted versus traditional oral and written family history taking to identifying patients with an elevated risk of developing type 2 diabetes mellitus. Of the abdomen is used to find whether any organ is enlarged and similar, assessing for organomegaly. It is based on the principle of setting tissue and spaces in between at vibration. The sound thus generated is used to determine if the tissue is healthy or pathological. There are three main medical percussion sounds: resonance, heard over lungs; tympany, heard over the air-filled bowel loops; and dullness, heard over fluid or solid organs.
Farming is a large-scale practice in the temperate regions, except for boreal/subarctic regions, due to the plentiful rainfall and warm summers. Because most agricultural activity occurs in the spring and summer, cold winters have a small effect on agricultural production. Extreme winters or summers have a huge impact on the productivity of agriculture. This is a concise presentation for medical students. A growth chart is also known as the Road to Health chart. It was first designed by David Morley, which was later modified by WHO. Growth chart is a visible display of the child's growth and development. It is also very useful for growth monitoring.
One common idea is that such animals form social groups to reduce the risk of being gobbled up. But Heathcote wanted to see whether the benefits of social living might come from the strength of individual social relationships rather than simple safety in numbers. The researchers caught 240 female Trinidadian guppies and divided them into groups of 15, each group in its own small pool.
You can either hang out with a load of guppies, and every time these predators attack, you're unlikely to be the one that gets eaten. But obviously the first thing that happens when you form a big shoal is that this attracts every single predator in the vicinity. The alternative is you can be inconspicuous in small social groups of 3-4 individuals. Everyone's kind of looking out for each other, they've got each other's back.